In 1603, the Union of the Crowns marked one of the most important milestones in British history, symbolizing the first step toward the eventual creation of the United Kingdom. The event took place following the death of Queen Elizabeth I of England, the last monarch of the Tudor dynasty, who died childless after a long and influential reign. With no direct heir, the English crown passed to her closest legitimate relative, James VI of Scotland, who was the great-grandson of Henry VII through his daughter Margaret Tudor. When James ascended the English throne, he became James I of England, effectively uniting the crowns of England, Scotland, and also Ireland, since the English monarch at that time was recognized as ruler of Ireland as well. This personal union brought both kingdoms under the rule of a single monarch for the first time, although it did not yet create a unified political state. James's accession was greeted with enthusiasm in both countries, as it promised peace and stability after a century of intermittent conflict between England and Scotland. James himself had long dreamed of a united realm and soon began referring to himself as the King of Great Britain. He envisioned the creation of a single kingdom that would transcend centuries of rivalry and mistrust between the English and the Scots. To symbolize this new unity, James sought to introduce a new flag that combined elements of the English St. George's Cross and the Scottish St. Andrew's Cross, a design that would later evolve into the modern Union Jack. However, despite the symbolic importance of these gestures, James's vision of a fully unified kingdom faced strong political and legal resistance. Both the English and Scottish parliaments were reluctant to relinquish their sovereignty, laws, and institutions. England, proud of its traditions and legal independence, viewed Scotland as a poorer and less influential neighbor, while the Scots feared being absorbed and dominated by England. Under James's rule, the two countries continued to maintain separate parliaments, judicial systems, and established churches, the Anglican Church in England and the Presbyterian Church in Scotland, reflecting deep-rooted religious and cultural differences. Nevertheless, the monarch's dual rule did bring about certain administrative and diplomatic changes. The royal court moved frequently between London and Edinburgh, encouraging closer contact between English and Scottish nobles. Trade between the two nations increased, and James promoted the idea of shared peace and prosperity across his realms. On the international stage, the new Union presented a stronger and more united front against continental powers such as Spain and France. James also hoped to ease religious tensions that had troubled both nations for decades. In England, he inherited the lingering effects of the Reformation and the persecution of Catholics under Elizabeth I. He sought to maintain a middle course between Puritans and Anglicans, though his policies often displeased both sides. The most famous event reflecting the instability of this period was the Gunpowder Plot of 1605, in which a group of Catholic conspirators attempted to blow up the Houses of Parliament in protest against James's Protestant rule. Despite such challenges, James's reign remained relatively stable, and his policies of peace and conciliation helped avoid major wars during his lifetime. The Union of the Crowns also had important cultural consequences. It encouraged a sense of shared British identity, especially among the educated elite and the royal court. Writers and thinkers began to use the term Britain more frequently, and James's reign saw the flourishing of English literature, including the works of William Shakespeare, who wrote several plays during this period that reflected themes of kingship, unity, and national destiny. Yet beneath this cultural flowering, tensions persisted. Many Scots resented the king's long stays in London and felt that their nation was being neglected. In England, some viewed James as an outsider and a foreigner who did not fully understand English political customs. Despite these divisions, the Union of the Crowns in 1603 laid the foundations for a closer relationship between England and Scotland that would evolve over the next century. Although James's dream of a single unified Great Britain was not realized in his lifetime, his reign demonstrated the practical and symbolic power of shared monarchy. The dynastic link between the two nations endured through his successors of the Stuart dynasty, and ultimately led to the Acts of Union in 1707, when the two parliaments were formally merged into one. Thus, the events of 1603 marked not only the end of the Tudor era and the beginning of the Stuart dynasty, but also the birth of the idea of Britain as a unified political and cultural entity, a vision that would shape the future of the British Isles for centuries to come.